I arrived at the hostel late in the evening, exhausted from the long journey. The building was older than I expected, its stone walls worn by time, the wooden doors creaking as they moved. It had an eerie charm, the kind that felt like it held stories within its walls. The receptionist, an elderly woman with sunken eyes and a forced smile, handed me the key to my room without much conversation. Room 306, third floor, end of the hallway. The air inside the hostel smelled of damp wood and something faintly metallic. As I climbed the creaky stairs, I couldn't shake the feeling that I was being watched. Not by the other guests, if there were any, but by the building itself. The hallway on the third floor was dimly lit, a single flickering bulb casting elongated shadows along the walls. My room was at the very end, where the light barely reached. I slid the key into the lock, and the door opened with a low groan, as if it hadn't been used in ages. The room was small, almost claustrophobic. A single bed with an old wooden frame sat against the wall, next to a small nightstand with a dusty lamp. There was a window, but the curtains were drawn shut, and when I pulled them open, I saw nothing but darkness. The glass was foggy, almost like something had pressed against it from the outside, leaving behind faint smudges. I tossed my bag onto the bed and sat down, feeling the weight of fatigue settle over me. But the silence in the room was thick, too thick. It wasn't the comforting quiet of solitude. It was an unnatural stillness, as if the space itself was holding its breath. I shook off the feeling and reached for my phone. No signal. I sighed, setting it down, convincing myself it was just an old building with bad reception. Then came the first sound, a soft shuffle, like fabric brushing against fabric. My eyes darted toward the door, expecting to see someone pass by in the hallway, but the gap beneath the door was completely dark. No footsteps, no shadows, just silence again. I exhaled, shaking my head at my own paranoia. Travel exhaustion was getting to me. I decided to get some sleep, but as I pulled back the blanket, a chill ran through me. The sheets were cold, colder than they should have been, as if someone had been lying there before me, their presence lingering. The air smelled faintly of something old, something forgotten. I turned off the lamp, settling into bed. The mattress was firm, the silence pressing down on me again. Just as I was about to drift off, there was a sound, so faint I almost thought I imagined it. A whisper. Not words, not anything clear, just the unmistakable sound of breath moving through the room. I sat up instantly, my heart pounding. My eyes scanned the darkness, trying to convince myself it was the wind, the pipes, anything but what my instincts were telling me. That I was not alone in this room, that something unseen was watching. I reached for the lamp, but before my fingers touched the switch, I heard it again. Closer this time, a breath right beside me. I froze. The breath was too close, too real. My skin prickled as an icy sensation crawled up my spine. I could feel something there, just beyond my sight, lurking in the darkness. My hand trembled as I flicked on the lamp. The room flooded with dim yellow light, and my eyes darted across every corner, searching for any sign of movement. The air was still, the door was shut, the window was locked. There was no one there. But I knew what I heard. I swallowed hard, trying to steady my breathing. Maybe it was my mind playing tricks on me, exhaustion warping my senses. But the unease gnawed at me, refusing to let go. My eyes fell on the window again. The glass, though foggy before, now had something else. Faint streaks, like the impression of fingers dragged across the surface from the outside. I stood up, heart hammering, and stepped closer. My own reflection stared back at me, pale and uncertain. But as I moved, a shape behind me didn't. A shadow, still, unmoving, right at the edge of my vision. I spun around, but there was nothing there. My chest tightened. I backed away from the window, feeling the cold floor beneath my feet as I tried to shake off the growing dread. I needed sleep. That had to be it. Maybe I was imagining things. Maybe the stories I had overheard downstairs about this hostel were getting to me more than I thought. Just as I was about to turn off the light again, a sound stopped me. A low creak. The kind of sound wood makes under weight. The kind of sound a footstep makes. I held my breath, ears straining. It had come from outside my door. Another creak, closer this time. I stepped back toward the bed, instinctively reaching for my phone. But I already knew it was useless. No signal, no connection to the outside world. My only option was to listen, to wait. The hallway was silent, but that silence was heavy, charged with something unseen. Then, a slow, deliberate knock echoed through the room. Knock, knock, knock. I stared at the door, my body rigid. It wasn't the kind of knock a fellow guest would make. It was too slow, too deliberate, as if whoever, or whatever, was on the other side wasn't asking to come in. It was letting me know it was already there. I didn't move. I didn't breathe. The handle rattled. I stumbled back, my pulse a deafening roar in my ears. The door didn't open, but the knob twisted just slightly, then stopped. Whoever was on the other side wasn't in a hurry. Then came the whisper. Not from outside, from inside the room, right behind me. A cold breath brushed against the back of my neck. My entire body locked up, every muscle frozen in place. The whisper wasn't words. It was a presence, something just beyond human comprehension. My instinct screamed at me to run, to leave this room, but my legs wouldn't move. The air had shifted, thick and heavy, pressing down on me like an invisible weight. Slowly, I turned around. Nothing. The room was exactly as it had been. The bed, the nightstand, the old wooden chair in the corner. But something was wrong. I could feel it. The walls seemed closer, the air colder, and that silence, the unnatural silence, was deeper than before. Then I noticed it, the chair. I was sure it had been facing the desk before. But now, it was turned toward the bed, toward me. A sharp chill ran through my bones. Had I moved it? Number I would have remembered. My mind raced, trying to find a logical explanation. Maybe I had bumped it without realizing it. Maybe exhaustion was warping my memory. But deep down, I knew. Something was in this room with me. I forced myself to breathe, to think. I needed to find out what was happening. Maybe there was something hidden here. Something that could explain the unease that clung to every inch of this place. I hesitated for only a moment before stepping toward the nightstand. The wood was covered in a thin layer of dust, except for a single spot, like something had been placed there recently and then removed. My fingers traced the surface, and as I did, a faint sound echoed through the room. A soft scraping noise. Not from the walls, not from the ceiling, from beneath the bed. I took a slow, cautious step back, my breath catching in my throat. The sound came again, a slow, deliberate drag of something heavy against the floorboards. My hand shook as I reached for the edge of the bed. Every part of me screamed not to look, not to confirm the terrible truth that was crawling beneath me. But I had to know. I dropped to my knees and lifted the sheet. At first, there was nothing but darkness. The faint glow of the bedside lamp barely reached underneath. But then, my eyes adjusted, and I saw it. A wooden panel on the floor, slightly ajar. The source of the noise, someone, or something, had moved it. My heartbeat pounded in my ears as I reached out, my fingers brushing the rough wood. With a deep breath, I pulled the panel open. A hole, a narrow, suffocating space hidden beneath the floorboards. My stomach twisted as I leaned closer, the stale air carrying a scent of decay. And then I saw them, fingernail scratches along the inside of the wooden planks. Deep, desperate gouges, like someone had been trapped inside, clawing, trying to escape. And in the very center of the space, a single, withered hand, not moving, but not entirely lifeless either. My breath hitched in my throat. The hand, thin, pale, and almost skeletal, rested limply in the darkness beneath the floor. But something about it made my skin crawl. It wasn't just the sight of it. It was the feeling. The oppressive weight in the air, the suffocating silence. The undeniable presence of something watching. I wanted to move, to run, to get out of this room, but my body wouldn't obey. My fingers trembled as I reached forward, desperate to convince myself that what I was seeing wasn't real. Just inches away, the shadows seemed to shift, and then the hand moved, fingers twitched, curling inward as if sensing my presence. A dry, brittle sound, like old bones scraping together, filled the narrow space beneath the floor. My stomach twisted in horror as the hand began to rise, pushing against the edge of the opening, gripping the floorboards with an unnatural slowness. Then, from the darkness below, something else emerged. A face, pale, hollow, eyes sunken deep into their sockets, reflecting nothing but void. Its mouth opened slowly, unnaturally wide, lips cracking as it let out a sound. Not a scream, not a whisper, but something in between. A hollow, rasping noise that sent ice flooding through my veins. I stumbled backward, slamming my head against the nightstand. The lamp flickered violently, casting jagged shadows across the room. The air was thick with the scent of decay, the presence of something old, something that did not belong in this world. The thing under the floor pulled itself up further. Its body, gaunt and twisted, began to emerge, long, spindly fingers gripping the edges of the opening. I could hear the wood creaking, groaning under its weight, as though the very room was rejecting its presence. And then it spoke. A voice that wasn't a voice at all. "You shouldn't be here." A deep guttural whisper, like multiple voices tangled together, overlapping, speaking from somewhere beyond reality. My vision blurred, my pulse hammering in my skull. I bolted, rushing toward the door. My fingers fumbled with the lock. The knob was ice cold, my grip slipping as I twisted it with all my strength. Behind me, I could hear the floorboards shifting, the sickening sound of something pulling itself free from the darkness beneath. The door wouldn't budge. Something was holding it shut. I yanked harder, my breath ragged, my hands slick with sweat. Then the whisper came again, right against my ear. "Stay," I screamed, throwing my entire weight against the door. It burst open, sending me stumbling into the hallway. The dim lights flickered violently. The walls seemed to shift, stretch. The entire hostel felt wrong, as if reality itself was warping. I didn't stop. I sprinted down the corridor, the shadows behind me writhing, reaching. The air pulsed with something unseen. something hungry. I could hear doors rattling as I passed, whispers slipping from behind them, dozens of voices, all saying the same thing. Stay. The staircase loomed ahead. I took the steps three at a time, my legs burning, my lungs screaming for air. The lobby was empty, the front desk abandoned. I slammed my hands against the old wooden doors, praying they would open. They did. I staggered outside, gasping as the night air hit me. The hostel loomed behind me, dark and silent once more. The windows were black, no sign of movement inside. But I knew that whatever I had seen, whatever had been under that floor, was still there, watching, waiting. I never went back. I don't even remember how I got to the nearest town. I must have walked for miles, but my mind has erased that part. Maybe to protect me. Maybe to keep me from remembering too much. But sometimes, in the dead of night, I wake up gasping for breath, my ears straining for a sound I pray I never hear again. A whisper, right beside me. Stay.